Welcome back, everybody, to the Rams franchise, where today we are going to be finishing this series off. It has been a fun run. We have gone to 4 straight Super Bowls, winning 3 of them. But with the brand new college football game set to release right around the corner, it is just time for us to wrap this series up. The main focus of this episode is to try and keep our core group of players together, to see how many championships they can win, and to find out how their careers are going to end up turning out. Now, obviously, it is impossible to keep everybody with the way that the salary cap works in the NFL, but we'll try our best to keep the majority of our core group of players together. We are going to have to make some tough decisions, though, on who to keep and who not to, and are also going to have to deal with some players retiring. Carl Williams and Ben Portis, they wanted a chance to start, and that was not going to happen here, so we had to let those two walk in free agency, along with Montel Rodriguez, who actually was a starter for us last year, but he just wanted too much money, and we couldn't afford to pay a running back big money when we have to start paying everybody else. So we had to make the tough decision to let him walk in free agency. When it comes to spending money in free agency, we're not going to have a lot of it, so we're not going to be really talking about it at all in this episode. Most of our signings are going to be guys like Joey Griffey, who are all right, but not amazing. It's mostly just going to be depth signings that are there to fill out the roster and to help give some competition to some rookies that we end up getting in the draft. Speaking of the draft, we got a few really good guys like Greg Davidson and Keenan Baskerville, who both have hidden development and could be starters for us down the line. But they're not going to be starters for us right now because we have a lot of good players on this team at the moment at those specific positions, being wide receiver and interior defensive line. We'll see if we can make it to another Super Bowl. We have gone to 4 straight, which is tied for the most consecutive Super Bowl appearances ever. Right now, we are tied with the Bills, who had a good run in the 90s. We'll see if we can break that record and make it to a 5th straight Super Bowl. That is obviously going to be our goal for this season. We put together a great regular season going 17-0. Yeah, that's right. We went undefeated in the regular season and are only the 5th team ever to do that. The 1934 and 1942 Bears, the 1972 Dolphins, and 2007 Patriots are the 4 other teams that were able to go undefeated in the regular season. Only one of those teams was able to go on and win a championship. That was, of course, the 1972 Dolphins. So we'll see if we can join them and finish off a perfect season. Here is a look at the stats from this last season that we went through. Cooper Kupp and Michael Kirkpatrick once again had big years. Steve Avila led the way as far as the blocking up front goes. The ground game was not very good, which was to be expected, with the loss of Montel Rodriguez and Antonio Gibson regressing even more. It was a big year for Josh Rosen, who had over 5,000 passing yards. He's not going to be winning MVP, but he did put together a great year. Byron Young and Emmett Spearman were both really good, along with Blake McCollum not being bad. And then you have, of course, Sammy Patton and Devin White leading the way as far as tackles go, with Sammy Patton getting 120 of them. He also had 3 interceptions. So did Addison Caver, though, who tied for the team lead as he continues to add on to his great career. So it was a great regular season for us. And now we have a chance to finish off a perfect season. Let's see if we can get that done, or if we're going to be just like the 2007 Patriots. We do end up getting the job done, blowing out the Raiders in the Super Bowl, winning 45-22. We also beat the Vikings and Lions on our way to the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl, Josh Rosen, he went off, throwing 4 touchdowns. He nearly had 400 yards through the air. It was also a massive day for Cooper Kupp, along with Michael Kirkpatrick. They each had 2 receiving touchdowns. The defense, it didn't have to do a lot, but Sammy Patton did play a pretty solid game. The Super Bowl MVP is Josh Rosen, and we have now won, 4 Super Bowls in the last 5 years? Yeah, we have won 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, and are now at that point in this series where players who have been with us for a while are going to start retiring, like O.J. Howard, who spent 13 years in the NFL. His best year with us was his only year as a starter for us back in 2024. After that, we, of course, had Michael Kirkpatrick on the team, so he ended up being a backup behind him, but it was a solid career that O.J. Howard was able to put together. We did have to make a few tough decisions, and one of those was to cut Bobby Brown III. He has been a Ram his entire career and put together a really good 2024 season, which just so happened to be a contract year, so we gave him a big contract. But after that, he never really lived up to the contract, so we're going to be releasing him in order to free up some cap space that we need to keep some other players on this team. We have also released Ronnie Perkins, who was a solid backup edge rusher for us for his entire time on the team. Here are some other players that we ended up letting walk in free agency. Vernon Hitchens and Tremaine Barden are two guys that were never starters for us really, but just solid depth pieces that could also contribute on special teams, but we just didn't have the cap space to keep those two around and had to find some replacements in the draft. Jamal Holcomb and Lorenzo Fields are two guys we took early in the draft that never really lived up to the potential. Lorenzo Fields was okay, but never great. And Jamal Holcomb, he got to be a starter late as a Ram with his tenure on this team, but just never took full advantage of that. Chris Stanley and Kobe Turner are two other guys that we had to let walk in free agency. Stanley was never a starter for us, but Kobe Turner, this one does hurt. He put together a great stretch from 2024 through 2026, and he had a big interception in the first season of this franchise that got us into the postseason. But it just was time for us to move on from him, along with Kelvin Joseph, who had two great years, being in 2023, which was only for half the year, and then 2024 the entire year. But again, we just had to free up cap space and had to let those guys walk. We really didn't sign anybody in free agency, and in the draft, we had to attack very specific needs like interior defensive line and also get some depth on the offensive line and at receiver. Here is what the team looks like after the offseason. We have two new starting offensive linemen, a new starting fullback. Also, you can see that Cooper Kupp has really started to regress. He's now down to normal development. On defense, we have two new starting interior defensive linemen. But for the most part, our main core is still intact. That has gone to 5 straight Super Bowls and won 4 of those 5 Super Bowls. So the goal is once again to try and win a Super Bowl and three-peat this time around. We'll see if we can get that done or if we're going to fall short this time. First, we had to get through the regular season, and we do end up making the postseason, but it was not our best year. We went 12-5, good enough to be the 3 seed in the NFC. Josh Rosen ended up throwing 37 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Not his best year, but not a bad year out of the veteran quarterback. Tevin Jenkins put together a great season, leading the way on the offensive line, and Steve Avila really struggled at left guard. Cooper Kupp went for under 1,000 yards for the first time in a while. He still got to double-digit receiving touchdowns. Michael Kirkpatrick, he had a good year along with Jose Ross, who has developed into a great player. On the ground, we got a solid year out of the second-year running back Matt Watkins. He got double-digit rushing touchdowns. The defensive line was really good. We had 3 guys get double-digit sacks, and Byron Young nearly got to double digits. He ends the year at 9.5, which is what I believe he had last year. He also had 14 tackles for loss. Not a bad year from him. Sammy Patton and Jordan Fuller both had over 100 tackles. You can see Devin White barely missed out on getting to triple-digit tackles on the season. And Nolan Walker actually ended up leading the team in interceptions, getting 4 of them, with Gaver getting to 3. We all knew it was going to happen at some point, and I guess that some point is now. Cooper Kupp is going to be retiring at the end of our postseason run. So we have a chance here to send him out as a champion and make this a three-peat and pick up our 5th Super Bowl win of this series. Can we do it? We do end up doing it, winning 21-13 in Super Bowl 65 over the Bills, and we have three-peated and now won 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls. And we had to win 2 of those playoff games on the road, beating the Falcons, who have Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback. We shut them out, and then we beat Green Bay in the NFC Championship game by a point. And then in the Super Bowl, beat the Bills 21-13 with our defense, putting in a lot of work, including Jordan Fuller, who ends up winning Super Bowl MVP. But for Cooper Kupp, he does end up going out a champion, a 6-time Super Bowl champion. He won 5 of them with us in this series and 1 with, of course, Sean McVay and that team that had Matthew Stafford as their quarterback. Joseph Noteboom is also going to end up retiring. He was our starting left tackle to begin this series and ended up being a solid backup utility offensive lineman for the duration of this series. He put together a good career, but not as good as Cooper Kupp, who is easily going to be a Hall of Famer. He finishes, this is in NFL history, 6th in catches, 5th in receiving yards, and tied for the 4th most receiving touchdowns in NFL history, and is a 6-time Super Bowl champion and a 1-time Super Bowl MVP. A for sure Hall of Fame career was put together by Cooper Kupp, and he's really going to be missed. We didn't really do anything in the offseason. We let a few guys walk in free agency that were not really notable to this series, and in the draft, we brought in a few guys with the few amount of picks that we had. Hopefully some of them could step up early in their careers, like the running back that we took in Ballard, who is going to be a starter for us as a rookie. Greg Davidson is now wide receiver 2 since Cooper Kupp has retired. The defense, it looks pretty much the same. We do have a new starting defensive tackle in Meeks, who has some pretty good ratings and should be fine out there. But can we get the job done even without Cooper Kupp? He was a big part of this team and one of the big reasons that we were as good as we were for as long as we have been. Can we do it without him though? We do end up making the postseason without him. We go 13-4, which is going to make us the 2 seed in the NFC. So again, we may have to win a playoff game on the road. This time it would only have to be 1, and it would have to be against Green Bay. Josh Rosen didn't put together a great year. He went for only 26 touchdowns. Maybe that had to do with the left tackle there, Brandon Redmond, having an awful year, giving up 18 sacks in 16 games. And you could see that the offense, it did take a step back without Cooper Kupp. Michael Kirkpatrick and Jose Ross were good, but the production out of our next closest pass catcher was a bit down from usual. Ballard had a decent rookie year, not an amazing one. He is going to actually end up winning NFC Offensive Rookie of the Year, which will increase his dev trade up to Superstar Dev. And our pass rush was really good this year. We had a lot of guys getting over 5 sacks. Emmett Spearman had a massive season, along with Blake McCollum. They both had 20 tackles for loss. Sammy Patton once again went for over 120 tackles and had 3 interceptions. Jordan Fuller barely missed out on getting to triple-digit tackles. So we are the 2 seed in the NFC, looking to pick up our 6th Super Bowl victory of this series. Can we keep this dynasty going, or is it over? Our streak of making the Super Bowl, it's over. We fall short here in the NFC Championship game, losing to the Green Bay Packers on the road by just a single point. If you remember, we beat them last year in the NFC Championship game by a single point. So I guess they were just returning the favor. It had to have been a pretty exciting game here. We ended up losing by a point, 35-34. The main difference in this one between the two teams is that Josh Rosen threw a pair of interceptions, and that's really why we lost the game. The Green Bay Packers would go on to win the Super Bowl. They blew out the Steelers 38-14 to pick up their 5th Super Bowl victory in their franchise's history. After this season, 3 of our core players of this franchise decided to retire. Antonio Gibson, Jordan Mailata, and Jordan Fuller all hang up their cleats. Jordan Mailata, he was really good for us as our right tackle. We could have moved him to left tackle, but we left him on the right side, and he was really good there for his entire time as a Ram. Gibson had an amazing 2024, where he was the best player on the field at all times, it felt like. I mean, just look at the stats he put up that season. Besides that one year, though, he was all right for us, not amazing. He put together some solid career statistics, not only as a runner, but also as a pass catcher. Not a Hall of Famer, but a solid career out of Antonio Gibson. Jordan Fuller, you could argue he was our best player at the beginning of this franchise, especially on defense. He won a Super Bowl MVP and helped us win 5 Super Bowls, and he won 6 himself, winning 1 with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and those guys back in the day. We did have to let Anthony Allen walk in free agency. He just wanted too much money, and we couldn't afford to keep him. So he ends up leaving in free agency. And we really didn't do anything in free agency because we're out of cap space, you could see. And we had to nail the draft, and we did, especially the offensive line. That was where our first 3 picks went. And we got 3 really good players that are likely going to have to play early in their careers. It is an entire new offensive line, just about, besides Steve Avila and Tevin Jenkins. You can see the baller did end up going up to Superstar Devi, won the Rookie of the Year award in the NFC. On defense, it's the same group of players. No changes here to the starting lineup besides Jordan Fuller retiring and now having Justice Branch actually start in his place. So we'll see if we can get back on the right track here and get back to another Super Bowl, or if the dynasty is really going to be over. In the regular season, we are back on top of the NFC. We go 14-3, finishing with the best record in the NFC. So we will have home field advantage throughout the NFC side of the postseason. Rosen went back for over 30 passing touchdowns this season, getting to 34. The offensive line, it did struggle with all the new faces that had to play, and it impacted even some of our veterans. Michael Kirkpatrick and Jose Ross are still a dynamite 1-2 punch as far as our top receiver and tight end go. Greg Davidson was pretty solid as our third pass catcher. Barr did not really take a leap forward in year number 2 of his career, but he wasn't really bad. The defensive line was really good again. Emmett Spearman, along with Baskerville and McCallum and Young, they were all really good. Sammy Patton leading the way. Devin White still going, even though he's down to normal development, and his overall is really starting to tank. He's still up there in tackles. Nolan Walker and Goodwin are the 2 leaders for interceptions, as we did pick off a lot of passes in the regular season. Hopefully we could do that here in the postseason and start a new streak of making the Super Bowl. We'll see if we are able to do that or not. We end up losing again in the NFC Championship game. This time it is the Atlanta Falcons getting the best of us and Patrick Mahomes as they beat us 21-13. And yeah, we didn't really have anything going on offense until late in the fourth quarter when the game was already over. And the reason for that is the offensive line couldn't hold up. Patrick Mahomes didn't really do much, but our offense couldn't do anything, with Rosen getting sacked 5 times. And Mahomes, he led the Falcons to their first Super Bowl victory in their franchise's history. Byron Young, who was our rookie when we began this series, has retired. He only played 10 years in the NFL, but he was really good. He actually finishes his career with 3.5 more sacks than Aaron Donald. So Byron Young could be a Hall of Famer. I would say he should be. He helped us win a lot of rings and had more sacks than Aaron Donald. How could you say he wouldn't be a Hall of Famer with those stats and the accolades that he ends up finishing with? We're going to be getting through one more season here in this series. We are really negative in the cap space, negative $21 million. So this is really the end of this team. We'll see if it can send us out on top or not. Rosen is starting to regress a bit, now down to Superstar Dev. I believe he was last year as well, but you could tell he's getting near the end of his career. Nolan Walker also down to Superstar Development. Devin White down to 66 for his overall rating. This is really it for this team. One last season. Try and send us out as champions like we did with Cooper Kupp. But how about we do that for the entire team in this series? First, we got to get through the regular season. We went 16-1 in the regular season. Not quite a perfect season, but we do only lose one game in the regular season, and it was to the Buccaneers, who have Lamar Jackson as their quarterback. We lost by a single point, so really close to going undefeated. Josh Rosen went for 33 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions as he continues to put together great year after great year. Tiva Vila back to his usual self, along with Tevin Jenkins. Those two really were amazing, especially considering the rest of the offensive line. Michael Kirkpatrick went for 100 catches, had 9 touchdowns, adding on to his career totals. Jose Ross was not that bad. How about Darius Ballard, getting 22 touchdowns on the ground? An amazing year out of the third-year running back out of Memphis. I guess there's just something about those Memphis running backs. Gibson, of course, was one. Emmett Spearman put together a career season, getting 16 sacks, leading the way easily. Sammy Patton, maybe not his best year, but it wasn't a bad year out of him. And Devin White, even though he's a 66 overall with only normal development, he still was pretty good. Caver and Branch ended up getting the most interceptions on the team, as we really didn't pick off that many passes this year. So this is it. Can we end this series as Super Bowl champions, or are we going to fall short? Hopefully we could pick up our 6th Super Bowl win. Let's find out. We didn't even make it out of the divisional round. we lost 20-7 to Minnesota. So the dynasty, it's for sure over, and we are not able to end this series as Super Bowl champions. Instead, it's going to be the Minnesota Vikings who were able to get their first ever Super Bowl victory, beating the Cleveland Browns in a battle between two teams that have not had the best success, but good for the Vikings to get a Super Bowl win. Devin White and Tevin Jenkins, they end up retiring after the year. Jenkins was one of our better free agent signings we made in this series. He was really great throughout his entire time as a Ram. Having him and Jordan Mailata on the right side was just insane to me. They're both such big, just monstrous offensive linemen, and we had both of them. Devin White, he put together a Hall of Fame career. Just look at his stats. He ends up finishing with the 10th most tackles all time, combined tackles that is, in NFL history. And just a lot of sacks for an off-ball linebacker. Won a lot of Super Bowls. I think he would be a Hall of Famer. Before we end this episode, and therefore end this series, we should talk about the players who did not retire that were key to this team. Blake McCollum. You could say he was never our best pass rusher in any given season, and you could even argue that he was never even our second best pass rusher in a given season. But he ends up with 60.5 sacks over 8 years, and that's pretty good considering he was not a first-round pick. He put together a solid career with us. Sammy Patton was one of my favorite players to watch develop. He was really good from the get-go, but got even better as the series progressed along. And I would say he was on pace to be a future Hall of Famer. On pace to at least match Devin White's career totals or get pretty close to them. And he was really good. Emmett Spearman was just getting to his best. He got to 16 sacks this last year, which was a career high. And his 9 seasons that he played for us, he got to 92 sacks. And it was definitely on pace to be a Hall of Famer. And would probably have had more sacks than Aaron Donald and Byron Young. Nolan Walker had a miserable rookie season. We couldn't even really get him on the field. But his second-year leap was incredible. He got to 6 interceptions that year and was just really good, especially for a number 2 cornerback. Easily the best number 2 cornerback I've had on this channel in any of this series that we have done. Addison Caver. What is there to not say about this guy? He was a Rookie of the Year. He won a Super Bowl MVP. He's tied second all-time for interceptions as a Ram with 37 of them. And it would have been a surefire Hall of Famer when all was said and done for his career. Steve Avila. He has been with us since the beginning of this series. And it was really fun to watch those first couple of years, delivering big pancake blocks. He struggled when we moved him to left guard, but as a center, he was really good for us there. We should have left him there for the majority of this series, but we didn't. He was still pretty good for us, so. Michael Kirkpatrick was probably my favorite player that we drafted in this series. He had a massive 2028 season, catching 20 touchdowns, which was tied for the 4th most all-time in a season. And he ends up finishing 4th in Rams history in catches and yards, 2nd in receiving touchdowns, and would have easily been a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Josh Rosen. He was a bust. After his first couple of years in the NFL, even after just his first year in the NFL, he was already labeled as a bust. He turned his career around with us and was easily the best quarterback in Rams history by the time this series was over, or is going to be over. And just look at the stats he was able to put up. Just an amazing turnaround. He helped us win 5 Super Bowls. He won an MVP, won 3 Super Bowl MVPs. How about the head coach, Frank Looker? He helped stabilize this team after Sean McVay decided to retire, along with Aaron Donald. They both retired right before we began this franchise, and Frank Looker got put in a tough spot, but he never had a losing season. 11 winning seasons, he won 5 Super Bowls, losing just 1, and was an amazing head coach for this team, helped build up the defense and had the defense become an elite unit for a long time. And I'm sure that they could have remained good for quite a while. Sure, some of those guys would have started to decline, but I think we were doing pretty good in the drafts and could have been a good team for however long we wanted this series to keep going. But this is going to be the end of the series. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your favorite moments and players from this series down below. I hope to have you guys join me for the Dynasty on that brand new college football game that I'm going to be bringing to the channel here very soon. This is me signing off though for the final time in this series. Thanks for watching.